Chapter 12, Part 6. In the early autumn of 1910, she set forth on her second Farewell American tour, with an old repertory and a new member of her company, who was to become her leading man for 3 years. This was Lou Tellegen, a young man born in Holland of Greek-Dutch parents. His body was a flawless specimen of male beauty. "I was powerfully built," he wrote, "and my legs were steel sinews." His head, however, was contrastingly small and, incidentally, quite empty. His hair was blonde and wavy, his eyes languidly blue, his features well formed, and his profile, not unlike John Barrymore's, was perfect. After he became an actor, he managed to keep it turned toward the audience much of the time. His life had been a tempestuous one, his early youth having been squandered drifting about Europe, getting into colorful scrapes and taking up various careers. He had spent a month in a Russian prison for selling birth control pamphlets. For a brief time, he'd been a trapeze artist with a Berlin circus, and he'd eked out a living in Brussels as a cab driver. Eventually, he wandered on to Paris, where he became a sculptor's model. To quote his own modest words, "My young body was dedicated to the progress of art." Someone gave him a letter to Augustin Rodin, who was monosyllabically ordered him... Someone gave him a letter to Auguste Rodin, who monosyllabically ordered him to take off his clothes, looked him over, and hired him. Tellegen lived for several weeks with the Rodins at Meudon, while the master was using him as the model for his well-known Eternal Springtime. He then became a professional prize fighter, but when he began to have ambitions for the stage, gave it up for fear of impairing his delicate face with a broken nose or a cauliflower ear. He made money gambling with Montmartre Apaches. That's lowercase Apache, so I don't know if it means something different than the people. I don't know. Maybe it's Apaches. I don't know. Learned knife throwing. Decided to become an actor and entered the conservatoire. How Lou Tellegen ever got into the conservatoire is as much of a mystery as how he subsequently got an engagement at the Odeon, for he was a lamentably incompetent actor and never overcame a strong Dutch accent. The Odeon engagement ended abruptly. After winning a rapidly squandered fortune at Monte Carlo, he went to Brazil and roamed for a month about the jungles. Then he worked his way back to France as a stoker on a freighter. And all this time, according to his own account, he had been steadily seducing women. The man was as vain as a peacock and fancied himself a Don Juan, with whom every female fell in love at first sight. Many apparently did, if one were gullible enough to judge by the statements in the preposterous autobiography he wrote in 1931. Its title is "Women Have Been Kind," and Vanity Fair, in its satirical Hall of Oblivion series, nominated it for Oblivion and remarked that the title should have the additional words "of dumb." That's funny. During Tellegen's Odeon days, he was befriended by the actor Max, who, dazzled by the young Dutchman's looks, assured him of a brilliant dramatic career. Shortly after his return from the Brazilian safari, Tellegen got into a scrape, involving a lady, of course, and upon being unjustly accused of robbery, was clapped into the flea bag of a jail which goes by the interesting name of La Santé, health. Max, who happened to be in North Africa at the time, upon receiving an SOS from Tellegen, hastened back to Paris and, by pulling the proper wires, obtained the release of his handsome protege. He then proceeded to present the actor with a letter to Sir Bernhardt. There are various versions of his first meeting with Bernhardt. In his own book, Tellegen blandly states that he called on her and that she engaged him on the spot as her leading man. A more authentic version would seem the one told to me by Jose Rubin. that delightful gentleman, an excellent actor, had then just joined the Bernhardt troupe for the American tour. He was very young at the time. The star herself always referred to him affectionately as Le Jean de Jean. It's J, the capital J, E-U-N-E, de, of lowercase j, E-U-N-E-S. Le Jean de Jeunesse. He says that Television presented his letter during rehearsal, which Madame was conducting from a seat over the prompter's box. She was exasperated by the interruption and was all for sending the intruder away until she looked at the letter and saw the signature of de Max, of whom she was extremely fond. She also got a good look at Television and told him to stay around. She'd see what she could do. Except for his physique, Lou Television wasn't much to look at that day. He had been completely broke for weeks. His shoes were shabby, and Jose Ruben says that his suit shone blindingly under the lights. At the finish of rehearsal, Madame instructed Pizzou to give the young man 200 francs and tell him to get himself some presentable clothes, as she intended to take him to America. Television got together without remaining wardrobe. Television got together what remaining wardrobe he had not pawned and packed it in a second-hand steamer trunk, so battered it burst apart as it was being toted to his cabin. Word of this disaster reached Sarah, who, already somewhat smitten, ordered a piece of her own luggage to be emptied out and sent to him. Bernhardt had no specific leading man at the time. The actor engaged for the leads at that last moment had backed out of the tour because Madame Sarah refused to take along his mistress as an extra player. This would have meant an extra salary, and the great star was penurious when it came to paying her cast. The leading male roles were allotted to different actors in the troupe, but by the time they reached America, most of them had been taken away from the different actors and allotted to Lou Television. She had rehearsed him constantly during the voyage, giving him a stack of scripts. Her repertory was made up of 11 plays. Told him to memorize them, and when he stammered that he couldn't possibly do it in so short a time, she had fixed him with a steady blue eye and given the simple command, "Work." It is somewhat unpleasant to speculate in any detail upon the relationship between this great artist of 66 and the conceited ass who was almost young enough to be her grandson. Lysiane Bernhardt makes no mention of Television, and Louis Verneuil, who was in a way a member of the family, having for a time been married to Lysiane, protests disbelief that any physical affair ever took place and claims that Sarah's possessive interest in the man was purely of a motherly nature. Other biographers give other opinions. Certainly during their 3-year partnership, they were inseparable. During the 1910 tour, he had his own compartment in Madame's private car along with the other honored occupants, the company manager, Madame's personal doctor, and that ever-present first lady-in-waiting, Suzanne Saylor, who, it is said, greatly resented the intrusion of Television. Jose Ruben recalls an incident during this tour when the Bernhardt Special was racing across the western plains. Late one night, the train came to a sudden halt with such a jamming of the brakes. Late one night, the train came to a sudden halt with such a jamming on of brakes. A few passengers were jolted out of their berths. Looking from this window, Jose could see no station, no lights. They appeared to be standing still in a vast expanse of desert. From outside on the track, standing still in a vast expanse of desert. They appeared to be standing. Holy crap, Tanya. Okay. From outside on the tracks came loud sounds of excited argument. The French actors had read translations of Zane Grey and seen early westerns on the flickers, and several of them armed themselves with souvenir tomahawks purchased at the last Fred Harvey counter. Jose went down onto the tracks to find out the meaning of the commotion. He joined the conductor, brakeman, and company manager, who were standing directly under Madame Sarah's window. Her light was turned on, the shade went up, and there appeared an apparition in white night attire of ruffles and lace, her red-dyed hair standing in wild disarray. She struggled with the window until Telligin, who had put on a brocade dressing gown, reached across and opened it for her. In the voice of some eerie spirit, she piped out, "Qu'est-ce que qui se passe?" The company manager, taking the cigar from his mouth, hastened to reassure her. Oh, fuck, I'm doing horrible today. Cutting it.